As you know, the session will be recorded, so if you would prefer not to be seen on the video, you can go ahead and stop your cameras. However, I would love to be able to see your faces on camera, so if you are willing to keep them on, I would love that. I'm excited to be here with you this evening to present this session on recognizing the value that differences bring to our clubs. We all benefit from hearing different opinions and perspectives, so I encourage you to participate during the discussion portions, as well as to chime in at any time with questions or comments. To preface my presentation, I want to acknowledge that much of the information I present this evening will not be new to you. Most of you have probably attended diversity trainings, probably multiple times, and we all understand that we have biases, even some that we aren't conscious of. So while the information itself may not be new, I hope the big picture view that I paint will open a window to how inclusive the term diversity can and I think should be. As I start, I want to first acknowledge a few things that to me are kind of givens, but I think they should be said. I want to acknowledge that each person, no matter what group they're in, has their own individual perspectives that are shaped by their own identities and life experiences, among other factors, not just what they're in. Many groups, that we're all in many groups. And to understand that there is no one right way. I remember my Spanish teacher saying when we were going to Spain in high school, she said to our class, just remember, you're going to see things that are different than the way you see them at home. And remember, they're not wrong, they're just different. And I thought that was a really good way to look at it. And that has not left me after all these years. And lastly, I hope by the end of this session, you will have a little better understanding of why diversity can be your club's superpower. So for me, while growing up, my school, my town, and for the most part, my state, consisted mostly of people who were very similar to me. White, Christian, middle class, monolingual, and born in this country. There's nothing wrong with those groups, but there was a big world out there, and I wanted to get to know people who had had different life experiences and perspectives that the perspectives that came with them. Yes, that happened for me when I went to college, but let's fast forward to when I started in Toastmasters. I first joined Toastmasters in 2017, and that was when I was living in the Dallas area. Like most people who joined Toastmasters, I wanted to improve my communication and public speaking skills, but as someone who loves to learn, I wanted a club with a diversity of people whose perspectives I hadn't been exposed to and whose life experiences may have been very different than my own. Fortunately, urban areas tend to have a lot of diversity, and I quickly found a club that I loved. When I moved to Philadelphia a year later, the hardest thing for me about moving, I really like Texas, but what was hardest for me about moving was leaving my Toastmasters club. I still miss them. However, I found a great club, Mainline Speaks, in Philadelphia. And I was looking again for a very diverse club, but of course, really nice people. Obviously, that has to be a given, but I found the club that was right for me. I knew my people in that first meeting. So I found a club that embraced differences the way I did. Now I'm going to do my best to work this screen share. And let's see, here we go. Okay. 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 We doing okay there? You can see my screen? Okay.
Yes.
Good, thank you. So here is a picture of the board that back a few years ago, when pre-COVID, when we were at attending training in person. This was our club, and we look like a pretty diverse group, don't we? And it felt like it. It was great. Some of our diversity you can see, some of it you can't. You can't see from the picture that there's several different faiths practice among us. You can't see, well, for one thing, we had very different careers and therefore very different skill sets. And it was really neat because we had so many different perspectives. We were great problem solvers. So there was a lot of diversity there. But what do you notice when you when you look at our group? Is there something missing?
It's all ladies.
Yeah, no men.
Male.
Yes. Yes.
Where'd they go?
And yeah, and hey, we had a great group there, but men and women think pretty differently, and neither one is better, but wouldn't it be great to have both? And this is not about checking a box, okay? Because it is important, fairness, equality is important, but my point today is it's even beyond that, it just benefits all of us to have differences represented. We learn more from differences. Our assumptions are challenged. I feel like we lose out when we don't have diversity. So I did notice that we didn't have any male perspective, and keeping in mind that if you had one man there, that would be his perspective, but other men would have different perspectives, just like each of the women here had their own perspective. So I have just used the term diversity several times, and we'll use it probably many more times during this presentation. I'd like to hear from you. When you hear the term diversity, what does it mean to you?
For my club, we are diverse, and I would share with the club that we're a melting pot because we come from different backgrounds, different groups, different age groups, different parts of the state, different experiences. So we're like different skill sets.
I love that. And you said something that really caught me. Something that is near and dear to my heart is generational diversity, because I think in a lot of situations, we don't mix a lot with different generations. Maybe some people do in their workplaces, but that's something that I think we really can benefit from in Toastmasters, to have a diverse group, and especially those of us who are older, to be able to bring in younger people and let them know how much we support them and want to help them. So Teresa, I think you had your hand up next.
Yes, I'm from Blue Hen Toastmasters in Newark, Delaware. So I'm actually from a different district. But what's unusual about our particular organization, our particular club, is that we actually have two diverse populations within the group. We have students at the University of Delaware, and we have professionals out in industry at the same time. So that creates a lot of different needs.
Mm-hmm. I love that, because the students can learn from you guys, but you guys can also learn from them. It's two ways. So that's great. Darlene.
Hi, I was going to say that when I think of diversity, I think of people who not only look different, but they have different cultures, different beliefs, and different customs, as well as life experiences, like someone else pointed out.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's that's important. And I looked at the difference between race and ethnicity. I mean, I knew they were different, but I thought I want to have a little better idea of that. And I learned that race is something that you're born into, that you don't have control over. And then your culture, well, I guess you're born into that too, but you learn your culture. So that's interesting. Jivan, I think you were next.
Yeah, sometimes there's homogeneous, like you mentioned when you started in Texas, but there could be diversity of thought or diversity of perspectives.
Yeah, I agree with that. Thank you. Richard. Oh, don't forget to unmute.
Unmute. Different people have different perspectives, as other people have pointed out, and this includes differences in ability, different subcultures, and of course there are races, ethnicities, and religion, but also where people grew up and where people live. And there's also differences in appearance, and differences in fashion, differences in age, and there's a whole complexity that arises from diversity that can be interesting to look at and talk about. And so, yeah, it helps in here meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes. Okay, so let's move on. So here are some types of diversity based on individual characteristics. Now, these you probably will notice if you've looked for a job anytime in the last 20 years or more. These are groups that are oftentimes listed at the bottom of job postings when an employer touts being an equal opportunity employer. So some of these that I think oftentimes we think of when we think of the word diversity is gender, race, ethnicity, age, disabilities, religion, sexual orientation. And there are more, but these are, I think, the main ones that are on those job posts. So the members of these and any specific group will have an understanding of that identity that those who aren't a member of that group can't ever fully understand because they haven't lived it. So throughout the course of my life, I've been a member of many groups that were very homogeneous, as well as those with substantial diversity. Due to my experiences, I wasn't surprised to learn that years of research show that diverse companies actually perform better. And included in that is that they have a higher likelihood of having above average profits compared to the rest of the industry. To me, that makes a lot of sense because any group pools their collective knowledge and perspectives. And when the pool is more diverse, it makes us more innovative problem solvers. So when people are brought together to solve problems in groups, they bring different information, opinions, and perspectives, and it can challenge our assumptions, get us out of our stale ways of thinking. Each person on a team learns and grows because of the vast array of perspectives offered. So let's look at this. Okay, so let's say you're going to do, let's say you have a home project or projects you're going to work on. There's a vacation and you're going to get some things done. So look at all these different jobs. These are all problems that you need to solve. Well, let's check out what's in our toolbox. Uh-oh, what if your toolbox has only wrenches in it? that's kind of the way I look at homogeneous groups is, hey, there's nothing wrong with a wrench, but you need more than a wrench to solve all your problems. So, so the group's skill set and combined knowledge is fairly limited when there's a lot of homogeneity. But when we add some diversity to our group, we are able to handle more problems. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. I just had some windows come up. Okay, so this is a more diverse toolbox, isn't it? You can handle a lot more of those home projects than if you had only had the wrench. So ask yourself, what is in your club's toolbox? What is in your officer's toolbox? Is there a lot of diversity there? Do you need to add some diversity? And again, I hesitate a little because I don't want to sound like I'm just checking off boxes. Okay, we've got women, we've got men, we've got different religions, we've got different races. You know, it's not about checking off boxes. It's more about thinking, we want lots of different ideas. We don't necessarily want to put everybody on the board who, oh, we tend to agree with them. That's not necessarily a good thing because you don't get challenged. So without thinking of specific groups, I guess, trying to make sure you have plenty of differences and perspectives and skill sets is great. So what are some other types of differences or life experience that could add valuable new perspectives to our collective wisdom? I'm going to mention just a couple to give you an idea of what I'm talking about, but this list is almost endless. And I mean, I haven't made a big list, but there's a lot that could go into this. So for example, maybe someone who's a veteran who's served overseas in a war. I mean, what a perspective that most of us don't have. Another one could be like introverts and extroverts. That's important. Introverts and extroverts can think very differently. So I would love to hear from a lot of you about some other differences you think of. So again, diversity isn't just, you know, gender, religion, and so on. It's a lot of little things like this too. What can you think of?
I think diversity can also be where you live. So maybe someone is from a very small rural area and someone else is from a big city. They're going to have different ways to approach a problem.
I completely agree. Yeah. Yes, that's so true.
I have one. Your government and how you were raised in your country. Like this one guy who joined our club, he's a realtor like myself. His icebreaker speech was about how he and his family fled from their country and had to go on ship and was like lost at sea for 3 months. And it's just crazy. And it's just like a complete different lifestyle that I would have ever imagined. I was blown away. We were all blown away. And also,
I would have loved to have heard that speech.
I know, it was incredible. Really. And then he almost got eaten by the people on the ship. Literally, like it was crazy. Yeah.
Wow.
And then he went on to talk about how, you know, when he was growing up, he was so poor that they would just play with plastic bags, but he and his friends were happy. And now he's moved to America and living the American dream, and his kids have all these things and they're not as happy. And it was just like, such a crazy perspective.
It is so true. I took my son to Costa Rica on a travel grant I got while I was teaching. And that was the one thing I really stressed to him. He was just going into 9th grade. So it was a great lesson is I was showing him, look how little they have, but they are so happy. So really, who's richer? I think they are.
Yeah, agreed.
But, you know, we're in our culture, we're taught that, you know, money means happiness, or, you know, there is that message, but that was a great lesson, probably the best one he had on that trip. Pete, please.
Yeah, no, you beat me to it, Tiffany. I was just going to go into that, different countries, all the different kind of stuff. But the U.S. is like so radically different from so many different places around the world. Anytime you can get somebody who doesn't have that, they're just able to look at problems in such a radically different way that I think any American ever could. So yeah, sorry to like kind of repeat that answer, but absolutely traveling different national experiences completely changes everything at that point.
That definitely bears repeating, because the US is very different, but other countries are different from each other as well. So I was a Spanish teacher for 10 years, and I really believe any travel is a great part of a child's education, that you can't learn that in the classroom. So Valerie.
We too had a few speeches from different people regarding their home country, and one lady shared how she was trying to take her driver's test here and all that she experienced and how different it was in her home country. Another lady said how she was trying to get her husband here on a visa. And then we have people that have different hobbies. Like one lady makes yarn and knits. Another person would share how he does woodworking and how he started doing projects in his home when he had no prior knowledge of how to do it. And he just took a room at a time and showed us pictures. We come from people of diverse backgrounds, but also diverse talents.
I love that. Herb.
Yes, I grew up in an area where everybody was the same religion as me. And I went to a school in an area where people were I think about 75% of us were in a different religion. Something's revolving around my screen. Okay. And when I first joined Rotary, I think it was half the club were the same religion. And now I'm in, since I joined Toastmasters, it's a barrage of people of different backgrounds, which is something in itself. And oh my God, there it goes again. Okay, so anyway, it's interesting. I think 2 of my clubs have changed since I first joined, because you find that there are more people from different parts of the city coming up to this area, and the area is changing around Cheltenham Township and Elkins Park. And I think the clubs have changed over the years. So when it comes to diversity, you need more. I think it's good to have more of a mix of different people as opposed to one group over another. And I guess when it came to what I alluded to before, religious wise, I mean, you want to have more than people in the same religion. And even in the religion, there's a lot of diversity. The Germans and the Russians are Russian or Russo-Polish are at odds with one another. Not really at odds, but if you talk, there's a lot of people talk a dead language sometimes in jest. And if you don't know the language, you're sort of out of it.
Right. Thank you. I'll take one more and then we need to move on. Juanita?
Thank you. This is one that most people probably don't even think about it, but I was involved with the group and we talked about birth order. Because for some reason, most of us have been like the oldest. And we talked about, you know, how as an older child, you're expected to do this, and then the younger ones get away with things that you could not even think about getting away with. And so that made me think about it, that a lot of times people don't think about that, your birth order.
That was a great one. Yeah, yeah. There's so much more too that, that those all get us thinking. Things like neurodiversity, like some of us have ADD or ADHD, dyslexia, autism, so on. There's life tragedies that some people have dealt with, and what a perspective that gives them. Our different interests and passion, family size, lots of things like that. So I'd like you to think for just a second about how diverse your club is. And you don't have to tell us if you don't want. I know some of you have said you have very diverse clubs, and that's awesome. So now let's think of how our clubs could be more diverse. And one thing I'd like us to think about, just one particular type of diversity, is the generational diversity. And I know someone already mentioned that, and I was excited to hear that, because that's something that I think is, we don't see that as often. And I think it's so important for the generations to mix, because we have so much to learn from one another. And honestly, some stereotypes to break. We tend to, you hear people my age talking about, kids are always on their cell phone. And then, kids, that age talking about how, we can't, older people don't know technology. And, those are stereotypes. And, it's easy to have stereotypes if you really don't have a whole lot of interaction with the people you're stereotyping. So how can we add diversity, maybe that more diversity, like wider forms? And if anyone wants to touch on the age diversity, they can as well, but other forms is fine. Valerie.
I would say diversity would be great if we had different levels of management. We are a corporate club, and we are stationed in Trenton. We work for the state of New Jersey, and the majority of our members are non-management. And it would be wonderful to have, we used to have our chief of staff as a member, but she moved on to another agency. And that would bring in a different perspective of speeches, of presentations for table topics. We ran a leadership, leaders influencing leaders, which would be, we had the executive team come and give speeches, and it was really like leaders influencing leaders. We were also influencing them by getting them to come to our club and listen to what we had to say and get them involved, and maybe bring in more guests who otherwise wouldn't have come.
That's great. And it's important for them to get your perspective, because they may not get that every day at work.
Yes.
Teresa.
Yes, one of the aspects of diversity that we have within our club, but it wouldn't be bad to have more of it, is we have different types of disability within our club, which is kind of unusual. And one of the most unusual disabilities that we have is we have a couple people who have like speech issues, like stuttering and lisp and such, and they're still part of Toastmasters, which is pretty, I think, pretty awesome that folks that do have the speech challenges still see the importance of being able to give a good speech. So that's pretty interesting.
That's great. And I love the fact that they must feel supported and safe there if they will stay in the club and take that risk. And clearly your club has done a great job then supporting them. So that's awesome. Jen.
Hi, Alan. So when we talk about generational diversity and we learn that different generations, we do things differently, right? And so us, older generation, we got to keep up with the technology, with the new things, right? And for example, if we want to reach out to younger generation, if we go by email, even today by Facebook, they don't go there, right? They use Instagram, other, TikTok, other channels. So only if if we are aware of that, we also actively utilize those channels, we'll be able to reach out to younger generation.
Yeah, sometimes I wonder if they just move on to other things because they don't want their parents to have their account. They don't want their parents to be connected to them. Okay, we're done with Facebook. They see everything I post.
That is so true. On the other hand, Ellen, we have a good example in our club, right? So one thing we can go actually start with our family. That is how we recruited Myra, right?
Right.
So one of our members recruited her daughter. How nice is that?
And we say she's our superstar. We love having her in our club. It's so awesome.
Yeah.
Herb, you were looking to speak.
Yes.
Jen.
I would say, a lot of the clubs are in a rebuilding process. And what you really have to do, one in the city and one in the suburbs, club I'm representing tonight, which is out in Abington, you have to really reach out to the churches and the synagogues as far as getting people.
Mm-hmm.
And also reach out to your community paper. It can't just be, Philadelphia. It can't be, you have to go to Lower Bucks. You have to go to Eastern Montgomery County or wherever around the island, so to speak, and get people.
Excellent. I'm going to move on just because I'm watching the time. I don't want to go into Dwight's time because I'm sure he's going to have a great presentation. So moving on, let's start thinking about our board of officers. If it is lacking in some diversity, as our club was with not having any men, you can't make someone be an officer who doesn't want to be, but you can start looking at people in advance and think they would be a good officer or they would really benefit from this. Let's talk to them about it and start getting them psyched up about it and really helping them. And we've done some of that, and it's a good way to get some younger people involved and newer members, ones who haven't been around as many years. And so thinking ahead, if your board of officers is not super diverse, you don't want to just boom change things right in the middle, but be thinking ahead. So yes, have a plan. Okay, so how would you all suggest, what ideas do you have for adding to our board of officers?
This is Pat Paulus. I don't have the hand function on my computer. And as far as getting more diversity, once you introduce diversity into your club, that makes it much easier because the diversified will inform other diversified and tell them that, hey, we can be here and have fun and be accepted as ourselves. There's no discrimination. It's easy to get along, and they just bring them to the club. When they get to the club, the second factor enters, and that is they see diversity. And if they see themselves in the diversity, that's great. If they don't, if they are diversified in some way, you just get excited at the diversification they're going to bring to your club and all that. And you talk to them afterwards and tell them how their particular diversity, what they can introduce and how the members will enjoy that and what they can gain from us. And they will get excited and join. And then they will bring their diversified friends. I've been in a club that has diversification internationally where they join, and it's continued over the years because they tell their people in influence, they get to the meetings. If the Diversify come on their own, they see the diversification, and we've always had diversification and still do.
And also, like you said, when they come to the club, they see how they're going to be treated. So if they're welcomed and they feel that diversity is really embraced, how many of us don't love that? You know, it's anytime you feel welcome, then that's a place you want to be. So yes, I agree. And then, like you said, as your club gets more diverse, you know, everybody has their own different groups they're members of. So it does, it just gets more and more diverse. So let's see. I think Javine had his hand up. Okay, maybe not.
Hi. Yeah, okay. I'm back.
Okay.
One way to encourage the participation is that to mentor those people who are interested and feel them confident that you're there to support them.
Right.
So mentorship. Yeah.
Yes, mentorship is so important. I'm still keeping an eye on the time, so I'm going to just go past a couple of slides. Mine is kind of blocked here, but can you all read this, or this
We can,
is
Ellen.
okay, thank you. Mine's blocked by some pictures and I'm not sure how to move those. So anyway, I'll let you all just quickly look at that, but you can see it's a diverse group there. I'm relating to the woman with the gray hair there because she and I are probably about the same age, but and then the person at the mic is younger, and I mean, just looking around, you see a lot of diversity, a lot of smiles, and that's how I would feel in a group like that. And this is what I like a club to look like personally, or any group I'm in, that just makes my heart feel good and makes me feel like it's a great learning environment for me, and that differences are something to celebrate and really enjoy, that they don't need to be intimidating. And sometimes that intimidation that some people feel is maybe they just haven't been around a lot of people that are different from them to realize that there's really not anything to worry about. So that's where our clubs can help a lot. So the last message I have for you is to cultivate your club's superpower. And you guys sound like you have some great ideas. So I thank you for your time tonight. I really enjoyed being with you. And now I will